Are we waiting for Katie?
Yes. Okay, thank you. It looks like we are now live on Facebook. Welcome everyone to General Finance of our March 1st agenda. I first want to begin with any identification of any media.
Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there any representatives from the Two Row Times? Okay, seeing none, I'll move right into any changes, deletions, and then further to the adoption of the agenda of March 1st. Is there a mover and seconder to that effect? Moved by Audrey, seconder.
I'll second Melba.
Second by Melba. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. We do have a few delegations on our agenda this morning. I don't think I see Dale Davis on the line as of yet, which is in relation to the Police Commission. We will then move over to Feather Miracle with the library, the Six Nations Library budget. Sorry, Wendy, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm in the Dropbox for March 1, and I don't see all of the delegations. I see 2. So is there a different budget someplace?
You know what? I think that one was actually shifted into, if I'm not mistaken, is Beck on the line. I think that one was shifted into in-camera. So maybe check your in-camera on that one, Wendy.
Correct, Mark.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So that being said, again, welcome and good morning, everyone. Good morning to Feather. I will now pass the floor over to Feather for the presentation of her library budget.
Good morning, Chief and Council, Finance Committee, and members of the public and media. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning and to give thanks for and gratitude for the position that I hold within the community. As the Six Nations Public Library is the largest and oldest First Nation public library in the world, it is an honor to continue the practice of supporting the community. The library is a place of enlightenment and a clearinghouse of Indigenous matters for all residents of the territory who would like to learn about cultural, historic, and contemporary matters. The library is open to all and as a resource for both education and entertainment. I am here today to request the financial contribution to support the Six Nations Public Library in the amount of $222,687.87. These monies will go towards our operating budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, with the majority of these funds covering wages and utilities. I would like to detail the library's mission and highlight the ways which the Six Nations Public Library has continued with this mission in light of the global pandemic. The mission of the Six Nations Public Library is to enrich lives and build community while ensuring multi-format access to resources for lifelong learning, research, culture, and historical archives. Since COVID, the library has continued to play a very active role behind closed doors, as well as continuing to support the needs of the community in ways that we can. We offer contactless pickup of print materials, wherein those items are quarantined for a 72-hour period upon return. We have also been receiving email inquiries for research purposes, as well as requests to print, scan, and fax. We have also been assisting call-in requests for help with tech devices, as more people are accessing technology in order to keep in touch and for day-to-day activities. The library was very quick to react to the New World Order and established protocols and frameworks based on industry standards and reflective of our community. Behind our closed doors, we have cataloged over 1,000 monographs and periodicals for our archives. We have established a physical area in the library which is dedicated to government publications and periodicals for research purposes. We have increased our adult fiction collection through our partnership with Hamilton Public Library, continuously adding new and bestsellers to what we already have available for loan. As for programming, we have offered contactless programming, such as cursive writing kits, which is a very, very popular. We have given away over 100 cursive writing kits for the community, which have been used by children of all ages, as well as some adults, to enhance their penmanship. We have offered de-stress kits, which contained information about different ways that one could de-stress, as well as bubble wrap, face masks, bath bombs, and a little electric candle. We have chess kits available with the option of virtual learning, and that's with a partnership with the Chess Institute of Canada. We also have puzzles and board games to offer the community in these times if their internet connection is not strong or if they don't have one, but just to offer an alternative for the community, that they're not just always on electronics, to offer some family time there. Our partnerships have included, we currently have a partnership with Health Services, and we have a weekly book club, and we are focusing on local authors. The authors that we have so far have been Dalby Powless. We are currently reading one of Wendy Hill's titles. We will be reading both of those, as well as Michelle Thomas' book of poetry. We have reached out and established a partnership with the Iroquois Lodge to loan playaways. These playaways are devices with individual audiobooks. They are small devices. They can be cleaned and they can be quarantined, and they need not be shared, but they offer the residents of the Iroquois Lodge an opportunity to be entertained through story. We have also offered games and puzzles to them as well. Visually, the library has updated the books on our shelves, and we now have a feather to indicate our Indigenous collection. And we have labeled, or we have indicated our local history or Haudenosaunee collection with a purple collar spine label protector. So visually, when you come into the library, you can see what we have in both of those collections with ease. With a financial contribution from the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council, we are planning to continue to offer contactless services to the community, as well as programming, and continue to be a resource within the community, meeting any needs that we can. The budget is divided into different sections, with the ask for $222,687.87 from council. We have budgeted for provincial income of $47,147, as well as grants totaling $55,675.78. The budget, we also have other revenue, and that's internal revenue that we are able to make through printing, copying, fines, fax, sales, and donations, totaling $870 for this year, and these are estimates. The majority of the budget does go to the payroll expenses, but we also have budgeted for holdings, so the library can continue offering different resources to the community, including books written by Native and local authors, native books for teens, fiction books, nonfiction, and to increase our juvenile collection, as well as continuing on with the e-resources. The e-resources that the library subscribes to are available to the community through the library's website, and anyone with a library card can access those any of those e-resources very, very easily. And they cover a range of topics. Other items is to continue with our catalog. It is through the library's online access to the catalog that you are able to put books on hold. So if you have a library membership, you can go on at any time and request books to be placed on hold under your account, wherein they are taken off of the shelf and assigned to your account. You can come in at any of our opening times and sign them out. And the loan period is 3 weeks with the opportunity to renew for an additional 3 weeks. Board, programming, building and utilities, staff expenses and supplies. Those are the main areas. Cognizant of time, I can move to questions now.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation this morning, Feather. Again, Council, the budgets are within your Dropbox. I now want to shift over to any questions or comments for Feather. I see Helen and then Michelle.
Feather, when is the last time you got the contribution from the Gaming Commission? Because I know the last time I sat there, you were struggling to get money. Have you gotten any money from the Gaming Commission?
Yes, so I have been following up with the Gaming Commission. The library submitted for 2021 as well as in 2020, and the release of those funds from 2020 were just received by the library.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen and Feather. Michelle.
So with us being in black, I understand the library is closed. So with looking at the budget you've presented, are you anticipating opening? And that's why you're requesting these staff dollars?
Yes, so yes, the community is in code black, which means that the library has protocols and frameworks in place to navigate the world in light of COVID. And so what we have is a maximum of 5 people in the library at any given time. The library doors are locked, but the library is staffed. So members of the community have been coming to the library since COVID started, actually, and they will knock on the door or they will send emails requesting, making different requests of the library. We have been, throughout all of COVID, we have continued to research and provide information for people all over the world, because I gather they now have time to assuage their curiosities. So we have been looking after that, but the library has been advertising, and we have regular hours of service where you can either call or knock on the door, or to arrange for different things. So from 12 till 5, Monday to Friday, the library offers this to the public.
Thank you. So my further question then, Feather, is you've been doing this since last March, I take it. So what is the traffic how many people call for service? Because I understand it, right? It's another outlet for mental wellness, reading and doing some research, but what is the traffic? Sorry if I missed it. I was in and out.
Okay, the library offers reader's advisory.
No, I'm just looking for a number.
Oh, you want a number?
How many people this current fiscal, actually asked for some services?
On a daily basis, it's about 10 to 15 requests
Okay, thank you.
during that time.
Thank you, Feather and Michelle. I see another question. Wendy has her hand up.
Yeah, I certainly see the need for the library, and we talked about this last fiscal in terms of what we can do to support the library. I guess I'm looking at your budget and I'm looking at your documentation. So right now you have 3 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff. Your doors are closed, but you do allow people in. So I'm just concerned in terms of essential services and how to balance this out. I know Lori and Mike are on the line, but as we're in black, what does the framework say? And I'm thinking last year we had closures for a good portion of the year. So did you have any funding carry forward? Anything unspent? I'm just trying to balance out in terms of need, what we're doing with COVID, all of those pieces, and your ask.
So the library, and 2 or 3 summers ago, the library went to inventory and investigate what exactly was in the shipping container. 2/3 of the library collection was in that shipping container. And from that investigation, we discovered that there's a large collection of archival material. So that's monographs as well as periodicals, and our Native collection, Indigenous collection, children's fiction, nonfiction. So what we did during that time was to separate and bring in, especially the archives, to protect them within the library. If that material is out in that shipping container, it's the heat, the extreme heat and the extreme cold damages the material. So we brought that in, and what we have been doing is cataloging that information and adding it to the library's records. So creating MARC records, and that is original cataloging if the record can't be found somewhere else. So that's what we've been doing behind closed doors. With the 3 staff and the 2 part-times, it makes, for the part-time staff members, it makes for the time flexible. One of our staff members comes in during the evenings and weekends when the library is not, like that would be after 5 p.m. because the library is staffed and available from 12. It's staffed more than that, but it's available to the community to make these requests from the hours of 12 till 5, Monday to Friday. Since we have gone into COVID, we don't actually allow, and since we've gone into Code Black, we don't allow patrons into the library. When they knock on the door, we have a tray at the door that they provide their request to, if they want it scanned or faxed or printed or whatnot.
Excuse me, that wasn't my question. I heard when you presented and you talked about your COVID and you're following, your regulations. So I appreciate that. I'm looking at what you're asking in the budget. You've got 5 people on staff, 3 full-time, 2 part-time. You're asking for additional money from council to cover those salary positions. So based on your traffic of 10 people per day, whether it be in a 5, 7, 8-hour day, you've got 3 people in the library to respond to those 10 requests. And then you've got another 2 people that are coming in part-time. I understand in terms of the cataloging and the extra work to do in the library, but given the situation we're in Black, you don't have that, you don't have community members coming into the library. My question was more around, building on what Michelle said, the traffic last year, the closures that we had, where we're sitting right now in Black with increasing cases, all of those things. What is that projection? Because that's a lot of people for 10 requests a day.
I understood Michelle's question to be actually 10 physical people coming to the library, as opposed to call-in requests and requests over email. I'm not sure if I misunderstood.
Yeah, I meant traffic all around, but the total.
So I guess I based on what your response was to the question. So if you've got 10 people, so you're providing services to 3,500 community members annually, based on those requests. So I was looking for the stats that you have. So if your stats show that, you know, you're servicing 15,000 people in a year, I'm just trying to make sure that the balance in terms of your staffing and what the request is for funding, because I don't think we have the funding just sitting there. So it's a decision that we have to make.
Thank you, Wendy. I see Helen has her hand up as well.
Yeah, I don't think the 5 people are just dealing with individual people that come to the door or call in. She told us all the programs that they're delivering as well. So they need people to do those programs. I think she listed 5 or 6 different programs that they're doing. So they need staff to do those programs. She also mentioned stuff about cataloging I guess when they got free time, they're doing all the cataloging. And I can tell you that's very extensive work. Just before the COVID hit, the library took all the books out of that great big container that sits at the back there, and that filled the whole community hall. It was filled with books just from that container in the back. And Feather and her staff had went through and had to catalog all of those books. And there's still a lot of stuff, as she's saying, that needs to be cataloged, but most of the time they don't have time to do that because when it's open, they're always busy. So it sounds to me like she's utilizing the extra time to do all the cataloging that needs to get done. And I forget what she mentioned, but I know she mentioned something about the cataloging. So there's a lot of other work to be done at a library besides waiting for somebody to knock on the door. And I think it's imperative for us to make sure that our library keeps running. Where, as Heather has said, Six Nations is one of the most fortunate communities to have a library. And I think we need to really be supportive of the library and make sure that it continues to go even under, and I think she's done a great job keeping the library going even through COVID. It's not an easy task to do for anybody. So I really think we need to be supportive of the library. And unfortunately, they get no money nowhere. The federal government, official government cut all the funding for libraries. So they have no money other than depending on us, council.
Okay, thank you, Helen, for your comments. Looking to any further questions or comments for Feather. I see Wendy has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I don't want my comments to be taken in a negative tone and interpreted that way. I understand that our job
I wasn't
right
doing
now
that,
is to look,
Wendy. I wasn't interpreting it in a negative way.
if I can finish. So I want to make sure that our job is to make a decision on the finances. So my question around, you know, what are the stats, how many people coming through, making sure that that balance is there. And because we're in COVID, and I heard Feather talk about the number of programs, that's why I followed up with how many people are you servicing as well, and given COVID and all of those things. So I know the library can be a busy place, but was trying to get the stats so that we've got that concrete data when we make this decision. It's based on that concrete data moving forward. So that's what I was trying to get at with my questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
If,
Sorry, is that Feather?
yeah, sorry, I was just going to address, the questions can range from very easy, can you please just print this out? Or they can also be a series of documents that need to be printed. The library also plays a key role in faxing for the school claim, the day school claims. We get those on a regular basis, as well as requests to help fill out those claims, in addition to research and questions regarding those claims. So when the library is serving, say 10 to 15 people on a daily basis, knocking on the door, the the assistance that people are looking for can be very, very time and labor intensive. And so those are the telephone, or those are the people who are physically coming to the library. That's not to mention email requests for information, as well as people calling into the library. Because we don't do any contact tracing for people who are making telephone calls into the library, they can range, we can get up to, say, several calls every hour looking for help with any number of things, wanting to know hours of places, wanting us to perform research because they don't have access to the internet. So they would like us to help them perform that research and answer their questions on a myriad of topics. So there's the time distribution, as well as Helen, Councillor Miller had mentioned, the creating programming and advertising for the programming is very, very labor intensive. Any one program can take about 24 hours just to create and promote. And then there's the maintenance aspect of that.
Okay, thank you, Feather. I see Michelle has her hand up as well.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept the information right now. We aren't, as Councilor Miller said, we don't even know our budget for next year. So I'll accept the presentation for information.
Thank you so much for that, Michelle. It's been moved. Is there a seconder to that effect? A second
I'll
by,
second it. It's Melba with a question.
okay, sorry, my apologies. Second by Melba, and go ahead, Melba.
Yes, Feather, thank you for the presentation, and it sounds like you are busy beyond the 10 or 12 people that have been mentioned. I'm just wondering about your programming in regards to, I believe you said coping with stress. I'm just wondering if you use any traditional methods of coping with stress.
Well, one of our partnerships is with Health Services, and we are currently running a book club. And right now we are reading Wendy Hell's books, and she is local. But within our stress kits, we did detail a series of ways to deal with stress, both conventional as well as mentioning some of our traditional Haudenosaunee teachings.
Okay.
Market table.
Attached to that, do you do referrals with consent if necessary?
What do you mean referrals?
Referrals, if someone comes in under stress, for example, would you do a referral with consent?
Yes, we would offer a range of methodologies to deal with stress. We also have information on the different outlets that the Six Nations of the Grand River departments have for stress, like health services and those call-in numbers, especially if it's immediate.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather and Melba. I want to shift now over to Hazel.
Yes, I would just like to inquire about what you talked about, archives that were in the shipping containers.
Yes.
Was the archive material, was it like documents that pertain to various, say, capacity of school information for people on a reserve? Is that what was in the archive?
So in the archives is some of the collective history of the Six Nations, as well. So what we've done, we've been cataloging the monographs, and the periodicals. So those are the books and the magazines. Inside of the shipping container, there's a large number of paper documents. And that is the next step. It's those paper documents that will have to be, the next huge project is to digitize those so that they can be readily available over Vita Data or Our Ontario, which is a publicly accessible site. So that work has yet to begin. We've done some of it, but if you're looking for specific school records and things like attendance, I have not seen any information of that nature yet.
Oh, I see. Because a few minutes ago you had mentioned the day school information, but what I want to say is I know that the library is at limited capacity, as is our record management department. It's both archiving, it's keeping the records safe and all of that. I don't know, this is a political question, I guess, as far as getting a building that will house both library and records management, because all of these records are prone to be destroyed. I know over in records management, that's an old building and the records are down in basically a cistern area. So I guess my question is trying to get a new building where these two departments can join together and have a building that can handle the capacity of what each one does. So as for the budget that you need, I feel okay to vote on giving you the money that you need to operate. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. So there is a motion that we just accept as information at this time until we get the wholesome picture. Then we'll go on through each request and then we'll go from there. Is there any further questions or comments?
Mike?
Oh, sorry, Mike. Mike, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, more just to address the question posed previously, just in regards to a overall building that would encompass a library and archival center. So we do have a building that is designed called the Six Nations Public Library and Archival Repository. It's set to go across from Village Cafe in the new development there, but we do need a lot of capital to actually build it, and it's going to be encompassing other department services such as lands membership and then the genealogy society. So that's already designed and shovel ready. We just need the capital funds, and we are actively applying. And I've worked on different applications with Feather's help and the library's help prior that have been successful to date.
I
That's
just
good,
want to
Mike.
mention, sorry, this is Feather again. I just wanted to mention about the archival data that the library has taken great pains in order to protect the information that we have, in order to preserve it for the future. We have an on-site server, as well as we back up into the cloud. We are very, very robust, and we are on top of technology in order to preserve this information. This is something that we don't take lightly, and personally, I want to be able, to have it available to, the grandkids of the grandkids of the grandkids, and So we take great pains in order to make sure that that information is saved. We are also going to be running a program offering to the community that if you would like us to digitize your history, that the library can perform that as long as we can have a copy for preservation purposes.
Thank you, Feather, for those comments and follow-up. Are there any further questions or comments? It has been moved and seconded to accept as information at this time. Seeing or hearing no further questions, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motions carried. Thank you again, Feather, for all of your work during, I know it's such difficult times that we're in, but again, all of your work and your staff are very much appreciated, and we'll look to further next steps as we move into budgets.
Nyawagoa.
Nyawa, have a great day.
Oh, no.
Okay, that leads us into our next delegation, which is Karen Sandy with the Six Nations Language Commission. Good morning, Karen.
Scano Seguego,
And
and Brian's on as well.
good morning,
Okay, so,
Brian Spano. So I'll pass the floor right to you, Karen.
all right, awesome. Okay, I sent in a briefing note as well as our proposed budget for next year, as well as our revenue sheet showing what we've brought in since our inception back in 2008. So in terms of the briefing note, when we approached council last October, I believe it was, via Zoom, we at that point had expended our carry forward funding from prior year revenue. And so I just listed in point form there the funding that we've used to operate just this fiscal year. So we had our carry forward, we had the 100K from council, we had 100K from Six Nation Dev Corps towards salaries, 75K from the trust towards salaries, 55K from Polytech for salaries, and the two other items were for very specific projects, so they weren't part of our core at all. So I know we submitted the 5-year budget to Chief last, I believe November, early December, to go toward or forward to Mark Miller. And we also at that time had a consolidated financial statement prepared. Now, I knew our funding was running out, the 100K we got. So by December, I had emailed the acting CFO and asked how we could access like the investment line item, just like trying to think of all possibilities for funding. Also at this time, we had got a hold of the HDI or HCCC and asked how to access funding for our core from them as well. So we're still waiting to hear that on that actually. So anyhow, she called me back and said that we still had unspent funding from 2011 to 2012, like over 500K. And I know in our first 4 years of allocation, or first 4 years of operation rather, we had an allocation of over 3 million. And according to our expenditures was just around 2.5 was spent. So that would lead me to believe why she's saying that there's 500,000 sitting there yet. Now, and it would seem kind of surprising, right? Because that's kind of a large sum of money just to find out about. But she just said they had really didn't have time to reconcile it or look at it after it at the time. But because they hired the new CFO, she now had time to delve into this for us. So she was 90% confident. And that's why she allowed her expenses to go through, which at time were kind of on hold. So after holidays, January, I tried to get a hold of her just to find out that she was no longer at council anymore. And so I advised the finance manager of our situation. He was going to look into it. He did find 11K in our favor, and that had been allocated incorrectly from 17-18. So now I don't know whether that amount has come off our overspent budget right now, because according to recent income statements, we're overspent by 36K, which is probably about right. So if to fiscal year end, including the overexpended funds, if the 11K doesn't come off of there, is about 135K that we're in need of. And to the end of the academic year, which would just be under 200,000, and our end of academic year goes to the end of May. And that's just being very restricted, like just a basic forecast expenses, nothing additional. It doesn't include the Onondaga program because it's not currently running right now. So again, some of these points you've heard from us before. Language is our identity. All funding that Six Nations receives is because we are Ongohoe. We are unique and distinct from our neighbors because of our language and our culture. Creating second language speakers is urgent because we lose more first language. As we lose more first language speakers, it endangers our languages and puts them more at risk. Now, the MOU that we have between the Language Commission and Council states that a base budget will be provided. And the next point, absolutely, the federal government should most definitely take on this responsibility and fund language programs because it's the right thing to do. I mean, I think they should commit to funding as long as it takes for languages not to be considered endangered anymore. and not only then, but to financially support our efforts to sustain those levels of use so that they will not fall back into this threatened state. The preamble that we had suggested back in 2018 on our MOU to be inserted will ensure council's continued support. Revisions are being requested because the overall document lacked the spirit and intent of a commitment to language as the basis of our identity. And we're sort of still waiting on those to hear back how from like on our MOU when we submitted it in 2018, we haven't heard back on that. So it's been difficult to plan, as you can understand, with piecemeal funding, and budgets have been the same for many, many years. Like we continue to seek out other sources of funding. We've continuously done this, as well as the Mohawk and Cayuga programs. They also source out funding when they can. And until we secure funding, the Language Commission should be considered a yearly regular line item on council's budget. So I included the preamble there. And I also included our revenue to date, how we're getting funding in the door. I followed up with HCC last week. They asked me to resubmit a request. So we're waiting to hear. I asked GREAT if they have any funding. We're waiting to hear from them because they had a budget meeting, budget meeting coming up this week. So that's sort of where we're at. We're kind of in a bit of a pickle right now. We're needing funding to carry out our academic year. And as I said, I've included our next year in there, but I don't know if I know you guys really can't make a decision on that right now. Brian, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that the point that really has to be stressed is that is the need for continued long-term funding of not just the operations of the program, the basic operations, which we are being funded for right now, but is all the other background administrative efforts that must be made to keep our groups going. We have been funded year to year, which means that people who have employment options elsewhere will take them when they can get a much better salary with benefits and be assured of a career in this. And whereas we can't offer that right now. So we're producing excellent speakers who are being hired over by schools all over the place, and we cannot compete with their with these other outside schools, and we really need to have some assurance that we can provide our employees with more than 8 months of employment. It is no way to save a language just to go from jumping from one 8-month program to another, because this is more than just a program. And I'd just like one last point is that to point out that we're making tremendous progress here with the Mohawk program. I point out that most of the teachers on the community right now are graduates of our program. All the teachers in the surrounding areas, including the universities, are graduates of our program. That our materials have been translated into Onondaga and Cayuga, not Onondaga, take that back, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora, and Oneida, and they're being used to teach adult programs in those communities. Plus, we are constantly being invited and asked to help people in other areas, other parts of the country, to do what we've done because the way we teach is unique in that we get results. We create speakers. But I would just point out again what we see as the need is to become an established entity within the council's funding structure, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Karen and Brian. Just really quickly before I go to questions and comments, I'm wondering if we can get an update or hear from our finance, our CFO, Anna Cecile.
Yes. So regarding the information that was presented, last time that we talked, there was a question regarding, what happened with that $500,000. So we found a resolution from 2008, and operations and expenses started in 2009. And the resolution said to set aside $3 million. So if we take a look at the expenses for 2009, 10, and 11, that is, they took in consideration those $3 million. And what happened at the moment, because the numbers tell the story, it's there was a need to balance the budget. So that any extra amount over the $3 million was scooped out. After that, there's a report that has been kept in order, and now we are the language commission is 25,000 negative, and the information that language commission has requested to the budget will be taken into consideration for further discussion.
Thank you, Ana Cecile. Are there any further questions or comments? I see Michelle has her hand up.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Karen and Brian and Ana Cecile. So I wanted to suggest or share with everybody that I had asked Karen to prepare all this information because it's really hard. I think we've been, investing in language for years. And by now I would think we would see, our signs all in the language and everything. We should be immersed and have a lot more language speakers. And it's really nice to hear from Brian that we do. I mean, you've even, taught Minister Miller his language, the Mohawk language. So I really appreciate that. And so what I had asked Karen is we have to look at big picture, long-term thinking and putting together that 5-year plan. And hopefully, we'll do another 20-year plan. But I want to know, is there an update in regards to that 5-year plan, Chief? I believe it was sent to you in December.
Yeah, so that's exactly we're working with our finance team to go over that with our CFO to determine those next steps. So I guess that's what even for in terms of Ana Cecile's comments of further discussion needed on that plan.
So I also think there's some clarity that needs to happen because in that MOU there's no funding detailed in there. I think there's a commitment to fund. What that means is so open-ended. And so I really think, and that's been shared with the SAO and our CFO to really, I think, look at the Language Commission to see where we go in the future.
Definitely.
So
Most agree.
Some stuff we need to work on.
100%. And I agree with you, Michelle. I believe it starts with that MOU so we can clearly lay out what that relationship looks like moving forward, especially the funding piece of things. As you stated as well, the council has invested in languages for many years now, since 2008. And actually, I think the total's in there as to since the Languages Commission's inception. So I don't think it's a matter of us not funding or approving funding for it. We know that we need to support our languages, and we speak about it all the time. Within, our languages and culture is what actually separates us as our identity, and which was also alluded to. So I don't think that's the matter of the Language Commission obviously has the support from this council and as well from previous councils. So again, I think it's a matter of having those discussions in relation to that MOU and further figuring out that 5-year plan and so that we can move forward in the best way possible. I see 2 hands up. I'm going to go to Councillor Helen and then moving over to Councillor Wendy.
Yeah, I've been really concerned with data for a number of years because we never get any data. How many people are like Brian? I know Brian Miracle's program graduates people. That tells me they've completed the program and they have a big graduation ceremony, and the people that graduated are standing up there speaking the language, and so you at least could see some kind of progress there. But the other programs, I've never heard of the other programs graduating anyone. I'm not saying they don't, but I've never heard of it. I don't know if the same people are going through the program and, 2-3 years and then coming out speaking well, or if it's different program every year, because that's why we don't seem to be progressing in our language. I really have a concern with data. I've never seen it. And you're right, council has spent millions of dollars. And even before we started, people were doing it. But I've never seen any kind of data as to how many speakers we have, or how many people are part-time speakers, or are these programs doing any good? Basically is what I'm saying.
Mhm. Yeah, well, we
We
certainly
need to have some kind of data like that, because it's really imperative, I think, we can't just keep funding and funding and funding and funding if it's not going to result in what we're hoping it's going to result in, which is people learning the language.
Mhm.
Just my thoughts.
Okay, if I can just quickly respond, we certainly do have data of numbers of speakers. After 1 year, and that's only about, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking, is it 4,000 hours in a year? 2,000 hours in a year. And that'll only get a speaker from a novice low to, say, the goal is to be at the next level, an intermediate low. That doesn't always happen. I mean, that's an ideal student. Sometimes you get a student, say, like a real keener, like Ryan DeCare, who'll start intermediate low and probably get to 2 levels up or whatever. Like he did really well. And then there's some students that sort of hover around, just going up a couple of, like, say, maybe from an intermediate, novice low to maybe a novice high, which is still good. And so that's the goal after a year, is to go up from a novice low to an intermediate low. After 2 years, it's to go to an advanced low or even an intermediate high. And this is according to the actual scale that we use right now. And again, that's only after 2 years. And that's all we have funding for, is 2 years. We don't have a 3-year program. We don't have a 4-year program, which is where you get your superb speakers from. It's students that either, take their own, like, invest their own time, which, I mean, clearly they do. That's how we're able to get a lot of the speakers. But that's kind of the one, a bit of the conundrum we're in, I guess, is because we only have funding for year 1 and year 2. But as I say, we can show you the speakers that are at those levels and the numbers that we have at those levels in the other languages too. And they do have graduations. They just probably don't, I don't think they did a Zoom one last year, or it's just kind of sort of with their own little group.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response, Karen. I will now shift over to Wendy.
Thanks. Everybody knows I'm a very strong proponent of language. We always talk about language, the importance of language, the identity, all of that. But if there's limited funds, language is going to be the last one to get allocation. It's just historically the way that it's been, and we have to change that. Language is an investment. And I agree with Helen's comments. We need to see data, we need to see stats, and I'm pretty sure the commission has that. So seeing that in a chart and having it mapped out would be very helpful. But in terms of the funding piece, and I referenced this before with council, I see a duplication, because I know there's a big language component in our lifelong learning task force and the work that they're doing. And I always go back to, if we have a commission, they are the experts who is doing this work. So do they have a portion of that funding so that they can do that work and provide that expertise? So, I mean, that's a question there in terms of funding flowing over, rather than just having duplication or overlap. So I think that's a big issue. So if we can have some discussion on that as well, in terms of that funding. The other piece of it is COVID transition, because with everything that's gone on, and because there is some academic programming with the language, how much COVID transition funding did the commission receive for that work? So that should be in play as well, because we did receive a good portion of funding. So that's another question. And then in terms of moving forward, I just wanted to understand what Anna said. Of that $3 million, she referenced 09, 10, and 11, the 3 million. And Anna, did you say that that unspent money, so that would have been another 750,000, because it wasn't allocated and spent in those 3 years, we scooped it back. And if we did do that, that money belongs with that commission and that programming. So I think that's something that we have to consider as well. So I'll stop there. I mean, in terms of the core funding, I think we have to have that balance, because if it becomes core funding from, you know, our budgets through the elected council, does it then become a department under the council versus a commission? So I think we have to understand that governance piece of it. However, I mean, I would certainly be prepared to or commit time to working on this with you, Chief, or with others to try and get that funding and lobby. I know you have a commission. I don't know how much work is being done on the federal lobbying, but there's so much money federally. Language initiatives, the commitment to language, the mandate letters, everything. So there is no reason why we should be hurting for funding in our language commission. So I'll stop there. And oh, sorry, the last question. So Karen, I don't know if you were asking for, I know you want the full funding, but are you looking for that 135,000 because you've got that deficit coming in to be covered, or what is the ask right now?
I guess really financially, the ask is to carry us to the end of the academic year, which would be to the end of May.
Which is what?
Oh, about 200,000.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Wendy. And can definitely look to, I know Karen and I have also needed to, or we need to follow up and further meet to strategize on those pieces, because I agree with Wendy, you know, we have to look to, and again, the responsibility of the federal government, like there's so much, again, even their own investments going into language. So I agree, if we can work on that strategy and moving forward, again, just referencing that 5-year plan as well, Karen. Are there any, oh, sorry, I see Wendy has her hand up.
So I appreciate that, Mark, but what about the lifelong learning funds, the language money that's under that scope, and also COVID transition funding? Because that funding should have been allocated. So can we identify what the status of that is and how much money? And that can attribute to that bottom line as well.
For sure, and I'm actually going to look to again, Anna Cecile, just on that note as well.
Mm-hmm. So regarding the money that we're saying that, you know, the 3 million on 2008, there was an approval for the 3 million. So, and I don't know if I can share my screen, would that be possible? So was 3 million were approved in 2008. And if we see, these are the expenses for these 3 years that reached the 3,032,000. So at that point, as I mentioned, probably they were looking for some monies to balance the budget or balance the year, and 184,000 was taken out of these language, of this commission, because council only approved 3 million. So that's what happened at that point. This is the balance that we have as of February. I'm sorry, Chief, the second part of the question was?
I just said thank you for that piece. I'm referring to the ask of the now. So if Karen is requesting roughly about $200,000 to get her through the academic year, which is to the end of May. So I'm going to look to that piece, but also look to getting a little creative in terms of how we move forward for future funding, as Wendy's alluded to. So There's the funds that we can look to within or under the Lifelong Learning Task Force she had mentioned, as well as the COVID transition that could potentially look to help offset these funds. So I want to do some work, Anna, with you and your team to bring this further back to council. One, to look to the ask right away, again, the $200,000, and further to that, to follow up with, again, that 5-year plan, further discussion, and where we can be best supportive. And again, to make sure that we're following even Helen's comments in terms of getting the data in and all of those pieces to the bigger picture. So really just 2 parts, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what you're also referring to, Wendy?
Yes. Yes. So we have to see which money of COVID could apply, because it was to address specifically COVID. But as you said, we can go and try to find out what to do. And regarding the 5-year planning, yes, it's part of the long term, and I think it has to be a common effort when we do the planning for the whole organization. And as well, a compass to that, we can plan also for the other commissions that are basically that are amazing for our community.
Definitely. So what I want to suggest then, just really quickly, is that we work, Anna Cecile, like our finance team, myself, Karen, Brian, and that we look to right away, again, the right away ask, so that we come up with a plan for at least that piece, and then start to get into, again, those longer term discussions, so that we can bring this forward back to council for further approval. But in the meantime, we'll sit down with Karen and Brian and figure out a plan as to how we can get them the $200,000 to get them to the end of their academic year. Wendy?
Do you need a motion for that, Mark, or is that just, that goes on the action list?
Yeah, I'll just put that as an action item for myself and finance to follow up. I will just need a motion, though, to accept the presentation as information at this time. Moved by Wendy, second by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments?
It's Melba.
Sure.
I've always been concerned of the stipend that is paid out. It's a very low, and that's one of the reasons that we don't get a lot of people taking the language who would like to take the language. Some people, have 2, 3, 4 children. They cannot afford. Karen, do they still get about $600-700?
It's $350 a week now, and that's what HDI pays for now. So they assume all costs.
And thank you. As you can see, that's not going to support a family. So we need to do something about that too for the future, so we can have more people taking the language. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Melba, as well. We'll look to, again, further adding that into our discussions picture. I do just really quickly want to go to a couple questions, if I can. I know it's been moved and seconded. We'll vote on that just on a minute in terms of accepting this as information. Just a few questions coming in from Facebook. How is the Language Commission acknowledging all 6 languages of our nations? And why is it that Mohawk and Cayuga, the primary funded languages at the moment?
Okay, well, right now, our Onondaga instructor is taking a course through Syracuse University. So we're restructuring the curriculum with that program as well. So that kind of is one of the reasons why they're sort of not operating this year. And they had a really challenging time doing online teaching. I mean, as it is for anyone, right? But particularly it was more cumbersome, difficult for them. So it all worked out that, she got accepted into this program as well. Now, the other 3, then the Seneca, Oneida, and Tuscarora, we just don't have speakers right now for them in our community. And that's where the challenge lies, I guess. We do have some small resource pieces, like we have that, like this book here in the other languages, but that's really it. We don't have a language teacher and we'd have to cross the border for one to be able to get a speaker in. And, you know, with COVID, that's kind of more of a challenge. So it's not that we're not trying to do something. It's just that we're limited in resources. We're limited with people. So that's kind of what the issue is with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response, Karen. I also just want to acknowledge another question coming in from the Facebook chat is, when is the need for part-time evening or weekend language study going to be addressed?
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess the issue there again would be getting a teacher to be able to do that. We at one point got special funding in through, I think it was Heritage Canada, to operate like a conversational classes. So I guess that's something we'd have to look at. Again, I know we've talked with Great, and we're talking about having that sort of thing come up. Maybe not, I guess probably whenever we can meet again, really. We're trying to plan for this September, but it may not be for another year yet now. But I mean, it's just, again, where we're limited in funding, right? To operate these, we're limited in teachers. I don't know if Polytech has evening conversational courses, or certainly they have their diploma program in the evening, but that's quite an extensive commitment. I think it's like 4 evenings a week. But just to have regular conversational, like one weekend or one day a night. I know the Hugo program ran that too at one time. So we'll certainly try and plan it in, you know, when we look at our activities coming up, we'll see how we can fund that. I know it's popular. It's a popular ask, but it comes down to funding and teachers, really.
I can speak to the Mohawk side in that these night classes, weekend classes, these happen sort of spontaneously just by groups of speakers who will put on classes, and they put out the word however they do, and they attract a group, and they carry on until they sort of run out of steam. And this seems to happen, it's been going on for the last several years. But it's not in an organized, no one organization is in charge of it. It's just that some speaker will decide on their own to put on classes, and the word goes out and they attract students, but it's not organized.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karen and Brian, for your responses. Are there any further questions or comments? Again, it has been moved and seconded, and we do have some action items to follow up specifically with the commission. So we'll do that as well and bring back further follow up to full council on the bigger picture things as well.
Okay, all right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now.
Okay, now thank you so much. Again, just really quickly, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Again, Nyawa, Karen, and Brian for joining us this morning, and we will look to further follow up off the line. Have a great day.
Okay, see ya.
Okay, council, that leads us now into our agenda item number 4, which is the adoption of the general council minutes of February 1st. Questions, comments?
I'll move.
Okay, it's been moved by Michelle, second by Sherry Lynn. Are there any further questions or comments to the minutes of February 1st? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Okay, that leads us now into recommendation from our Human Services Committee. Oh, sorry, Audrey, you're on.
Trying to get it, Mark.
No
Okay, I
problem.
move that the Six Nations Human Services Committee recommended the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve the tender of Abcot Construction Incorporated at a cost of $962,814 for design and renovation of Six Nations Paramedic Service Base. The Ministry of Health will cover $634,344, and Health Admin deferred funds will cover $332,470. I so move.
I'll second the motion, Melba.
Thank you, Audrey and Melba. Question, comments? Wendy.
Yeah. So was this the lowest tender or is it the best tender? That's one question. Another question is, have we dealt with this company before, and what's the level of change order? Is there a way to lock in terms of the service being provided?
Thank you, Wendy. Looking to Mike or Lori.
Hey, so I know I'm not familiar with the project intimately, as it's been assigned to one of the staff, but I can speak to who is the vendor that it's being awarded to.
Epcot.
Construction.
Abcot. So we've worked with Abcot on a few projects. One of the more recent ones being the Ball Diamond concession stand. We've had a good experience with them. And as far as locking in change order amounts, it does become difficult because there's different. So a lot of the changes sometimes they're order driven, or there's subsurface conditions that lend to them. So with this being an expansion project renovation, it's very volatile. There's a lot of unknowns, especially with some of the older buildings where there's no drawings. But those are the answers that I can provide to those questions.
Just to add to that, I believe this was the quote that was recommended from technical services, and the quote raised related to the availability of materials during COVID and the costs that have raised during this time as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Lori. Wendy, do you have a follow-up question?
I do. Sort of didn't answer my question in terms of if it was the lowest or the best bid, but if it was a recommendation coming through, because we've talked before about our policy dictates that it has to be the lowest. That may not necessarily be the best, but it's the tender process. And I guess going back, and I thought I remembered this company. I thought we had a lot of issues with that concession stand and the timing delays and things like that that were not ours. So I thought there were some issues, so that's why I raised that. And just, is there a percentage framework just so that we don't always get into a situation where there's so many change orders? And maybe it's a bigger question to discuss, not on this project, but just raising that with our process.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for your comments as well. Just to further follow up on the piece. Oh, sorry, Darren.
Oh, I just wanted to follow up with Councillor Johnson's comments. Mike and I have discussed this as well. I think it is, and I think Chief, you've even made the comment that contractors come into the community and they don't tend to provide the high quality of work that is expected elsewhere. So we're actually quite keenly aware of that, and I know when we get bids coming in, we're adding those kind of expectations into the RFPs. So that's a start, but certainly it's something that we will look to tightening up a bit more going forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Darren, for those comments. Appreciate that. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the motion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. There's no further questions or comments. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Motion to waive second reading. Moved by Audrey, seconder.
Melba,
Second by Melba. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Okay, Council, that leads us now into our February 10th Building and Infrastructure Committee recommendation. Hazel and Audrey.
I move that the Building and Infrastructure Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve the 2020 petition for MPO's First Nations Road Program allocation in the amount of $551,400 from the Ministry of Transport for payment of subsidy under the Public Transportation and Highway Improvement Act on expenditures made in 2020 in the amount of $1,704,955.22. I move.
Audrey.
Thank you, Hazel and Audrey. It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Wendy.
So just a question to the mover and seconder. So is this a late report? Because I saw in the briefing note that it was actually due January 31st. And will that hinder the petition in any way?
I'd like to ask Mike to answer that, please.
Okay, I'll shift over to Mike.
So the funder is aware that this is coming in a bit late. They're okay with it. They've already pre-approved it, where they just need the motion signed off by council. And I believe there's a long form resolution that needs to be signed with this as well. So it won't hinder the funds.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. Are there any further questions or comments to the motion?
Question, Chief. So is the 551,000 deducted from the 1.7 million? If it's a subsidy, it's coming off of what money we spent? Cover the money we spent?
So the terms of this program, Helen, is that give us a maximum of that number, that $551,000. The terms that we have to meet is we got to expense more than double of that fund to get it. So the accounting, the 1.7 million is just there for our own accounting and backup purposes to say yes, we have, and we track those operation and maintenance expenses for what we do for the bridges and roads annually. So it's just part of the reporting procedure.
Okay.
Thank you for that again, Mike. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Motion to waive second reading.
I move. Hazel.
Seconded, Audrey.
It's moved by Hazel and seconded by Audrey to waive second reading. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. So just a follow-up, council, that we do have to get, I believe it's 6 signatures on the long form. So if anyone's around, I know we send it via DocuSign as well. So we'll get that to Mike as soon as possible. That leads us now into our next item, which is a topic that I'm not sure if in terms of the funding agreements report. Anna Cecile.
Yes, Chief. Thank you. On January 7th, there was an approval for the SEO to receive all the funding from the different funders that we have received, but we also want to keep updated the members of council about all these monies. So we committed to send a report every other month from the funding received. So this is the report. It's called Funding Received from January the 7th to February 25th. So you will see a detailed report of the data has received. It was for COVID or regular funder, who the funder is, the purpose of the funder, the department it has been allocated to, the amount and the period that is covering. So in this period from January the 7th till last week, we have received $1,847,902 dollars. And when we said we have received, I'm not talking about the money itself, because sometimes there's a small difference between the time we receive the agreement and the money. But it is based when the funder let us know you have this money, and it's either through an agreement or a letter, or sometimes it's even an email, but it's confirmation that they are sending those monies.
Okay, thank you, Anna Cecile. Are there any questions or comments in relation to the funding agreements report? Okay, seeing or hearing none, then council, I have, oh, sorry.
I have a question. Yeah, I want to know what's the status of the audit? I've been asking now for going on almost a year. I'm trying to find out what's the status of the audit. Because as we know tonight, it's critical that we start doing budgeting because everybody needs money.
Councillor, thank you so much for the question. We will address in detail that question in the next session. We have a specific time allocated for the audit.
So,
like we'll talk about that in the in-camera.
So, but why do we have to talk about it in camera?
Well, we do, just, like as a preliminary, we do have the draft, and the auditors are coming to present the whole report on the 15th. We were just, we were pushing it to present it this week, but unfortunately, like they needed some time to prepare the presentation. So it will be done on the next general meeting. More details to be provided later in the in-camera.
More full details at our next general finance meeting. Michelle.
So I just wanted to comment, I really like the overview of the funding agreements to date, and I see health has the majority of the funds. So I'll move to accept this as information.
Okay, thank you for that, Michelle. Michelle moves. Is there a seconder to that effect? Second by Sherry Lynn. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motions carried. Okay, Council, that's all we have for the open session of General Finance. Again, our audit will be coming at the next General Finance meeting, and then we will provide further detail at that next meeting. I will now look to a motion to adjourn and move into in-camera. Is there a mover? Moved by Sherry Lynn, second by Wendy. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motions carried. Thank you to everyone for joining us this morning at General Finance. We look forward to our next General Finance to provide even further updates.